Part 18. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 171. The third intelligence was that of an attack. This time it was straightforward. The Dark Elves slaughtered more than 200 innocent villagers and then withdrew. The satisfaction of the village dropped by 2 points and the satisfaction of the fief dropped by 1 point. A series of data showed that the Dark Elves came for the territory, and Shen Xian thought about how to kill these saboteurs. As discussed previously, the Dark Elves will not gather together foolishly. One way is to summon them through the leader's order, but even if they know that Chris is the leader, it is difficult to imitate the signs of the army. As a large city in the 6th stage, the technology mastered by the 7 families is definitely difficult to crack at present. What if we use epic and legendary items as bait? Will the Dark Elves invade in large numbers? It's possible, but it's not very safe, Shen Xian replied. How to convince the Dark Elves? It can't be too obvious. It's best to let them see the real thing with their own eyes. In this way, even if they know it is a trap, these conceited guys will still jump in. That's a good point. It's best not to already own a precious item. Mr. N's doomsday catastrophe is too famous. I think it would be a good idea to ask Wendy to borrow it temporarily. The two whispered, and after a while they told the people around them this idea. I have an idea, a broken void said. What is it? As you all know, the Dark Elves have been hit hard by the satisfaction of the territory in the past few days, but have you ever thought about their second target? The loss of population can be made up by immigration from the subordinate areas. The 2 miracle buildings are difficult to destroy. Technology and education in civilization will not disappear as long as the population is not completely wiped out, but prosperity is different. As long as the volume of trade declines, prosperity will fall immediately. The speed may not be fast, but it cannot be reversed in a short time. I think we can hold a grand auction in the territory. This is a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The main focus of the auction is legendary items. The Dark Elves will not believe it, because we can deceive them but cannot deceive so many lords in the underground world. I found out from the forum that an auction that exceeds the territory's trade volume can temporarily increase prosperity by 2 points, so that you are not afraid of the attacks of the Dark Elves. After that, several players came out to perfect this plan. Because the probability of Dark Elves taking the bait was very high, Shen Xian couldn't believe that the lord who lured the Dark Elves would use a legendary item as a reward. It really cost the most to buy a legendary item. Tens of millions can reach the top, but the legendary level is more of a symbol of faith and glory. It is priceless and rarely circulated on the market. Okay, but if you want to hold an auction, you must not miss out on the auction items. Everyone must come up with enough quantities. If you want to ensure a trade volume of more than 1 million, at least 10 pieces of rare equipment, 250 pieces of excellent equipment, and intermediate and high-level potions, scrolls, materials, and luxury goods cannot be low-level. There is a saying that is very simple: if you have money, give money, and if you have strength, you will contribute. Failure to upgrade this time will delay everyone's time at least 100 hours, so you can buy some equipment from the trading platform to recharge to make up for the lack of territory equipment. From treasure hunting it can be seen from the internet and virtual trade network that the excellent grade used for auction is roughly 100 to 500 yuan, and the rare grade is around 1000 to 10,000 yuan. However, you can only buy those from nearby neighbors, so that the goods can be delivered through Feilong within a few days. Or, if you don't want to use currency to buy, you can siege the lair of Warcraft. The chance of getting equipment is smaller, but the money will eventually be returned after the auction ends. As we all know, the trading platform is aimed at players, but as for the auction, if you get a rich NPC, maybe the price can be doubled. Shen Xian came to Fulay. She smiled when she heard that the territory was going to hold an auction, because after the auction, the third step of the plain merchant will be completed. In this way, the black market will face a broader market, which is very helpful for acquisitions and sales. So, what kind of goods do you want to borrow temporarily? For legendary level, 30,000 contribution and 90% of the auction proceeds. And, in order to prevent interested parties from prying, I suggest you choose an intermediate legendary item. This way it won't attract too many buyers. 90% profit, which means that a legendary item that can be sold for at least 5 million gold can only earn 500,000. However, it is still reasonable. He is borrowing chickens to lay eggs. It would be too bad if the chickens starve to death. Not worth it? Fleur produced an exchange list. It is best to have legendary items that have rarely caused wars in history. Look at this key of Solamnia. How many people have been destroyed in the past to compete for these treasures? The country, those greedy owners did not hesitate to sacrifice the civilians of the entire country, as well as the wings of sin, the treasure of the dead angel Gloria, at the cost of the complete dissipation of the 7 territories in the 7th layer of the abyss, and at the cost of 5 million demon souls. Materials, these are things people will fight for at all costs. There won't necessarily be a war. The fallen temple can't even offend a big country in the Night Star continent like the Pharaoh Empire, but it will send out the best thieves and assassins. Yeah. As long as you understand, Fleur said. Shen Xian next chose the Dragon Heart contract, a legendary item that requires level 60. It can forcibly summon and require up to 3 giant dragons and their servants within 100 kilometers to obey their orders. The interval is 14 hours. This item does not how many people know about it, but they can confirm that it is legendary. There is not much to say about the specific attributes, because it is not his own. After the negotiation, he ran to the center of the village. As many as hundreds of thousands of resources were stored in the warehouse near the center of the village. Everything was ready. At 12:30 p.m., Prosperity 19, another wave of dark elves attacked, satisfaction dropped by 1 point, and satisfaction recovered by 1 point during this period, and satisfaction still hovered above 60. At 2 p.m., about 100 inferior demons and goblin craftsmen came to the center of the village and took their positions. 5 minutes later, Prosperity 20, and the territory began to upgrade. Tip: the territory of the player lord meets the requirements for upgrading. The village center has begun to upgrade. Please ensure the stability and peace of the territory. At 3 p.m., through the promotion column of Sunbao.com, the world's largest virtual network trading platform, the Dragon Heart contract, the world's 15th legendary item officially listed for sale, debuted. This news quickly spread all over the world and caused an uproar. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 172. 3:11 p.m., London, England. Give me Baker, the person in charge of the underground branch of the Skynet Guild. He said that Sir Stoker came to him and wanted to discuss a business deal. I'm Baker. What does Lord Stoker, one of Britain's 3 military giants, want to do with me? You didn't see the auction of the Dragon Heart contract. This item can summon 3 giant dragons whose highest level does not exceed the user's level. What a perfect strategic weapon. Did you really not see it? Of course not. This item is of high value. How could I not see it, my old friend? But you know, since it is put up for auction in the virtual world, it has to rely on gold. The guild is located in a fiefdom within 500 kilometers of Dusk Hills. There are 3 pieces in total, and the total working capital is about 8 million. If all is spent, the construction of the territory will come to a standstill. Besides, Baron Rooney has also come to see me. Isn't this difficult to handle? Rooney? Why did he come to play Kingdom? This guy who was rejected by the upper class finally understood that Kingdom is a skill that a noble must master? Well, I went to the League of Gentlemen. I don't believe it. Less than 10 million gold. 3:18 p.m., Cape Town, South Africa. A typical black man dressed in jewels and smoking a big cigar said loudly, "God, I read it right, it is really a legendary item. Biller, thank God, we must get it this time, otherwise the territory that's it." Another tall man with the same black identity replied, "Yes, you read that right, really. There are only a few of them in the world, and many of them are not equipment but just materials. If our territory is not far away from the Dusk Hills, how could we encounter such an opportunity recently, Talia? Fortunately we exchanged 15 million gold, otherwise how would we be qualified to purchase this item?" 4:04 p.m., Beijing, China. My dear boss Shen, is it true that you said you were going to auction a legendary item? Nonsense, but your guild doesn't have that much gold even if it is temporarily exchanged, right? The Fortress of the Heavens is only 1% of the guild's power, and the liquidity on your books will not exceed 4 million. Oh hey, boss, you know it so well. We are just representing the NPC. In short, you don't have to worry about the money. We are just informing you, boss, so don't faint when we see us. How many thousands of gold have you prepared? Want to get some information? It's 8 figures at least. If you want to make money from NPCs, you'll have to find someone to support you. If you can get a price of more than 10 million, you'll be fine. 5 underground floors, Obsidian Dragon City. You said that Dragon God Hagem appeared because of the 5 Dragon Heart contracts left behind? I'm afraid those surface dragons won't be able to get here. That is the territory of the Desecrators. Even if the Dragon Elders get there, they must abide by the rules there. Rules, Adahel, do you know what to do? Yes, get it and enslave those surface dragons. Very well, take the gold and jewelry and go there. If the dragons on the surface are bold enough, they will be wiped out at worst. The second underground floor is a temporary camp. Chris, you said you wanted to go there? Don't you know it's a trap? Giggle, can stupid humans fool the dark elves? The 7th family does not have such a legendary item. If I can get it, my position as the mother of the clan will definitely be more stable. You are too confident in yourself. There must be a dragnet set up there. You are seeking your own death. Anyone who dares to offend the messenger of the true God is equivalent to offending the gods. What harm can a viscount do? Miss Sheep, your worries are too vain. 10 minutes later. Lord Neisel, are you also interested in this item? Legendary items are extremely important to the family. For the family, money can be earned, but legendary items cannot be bought with money. It's a pity that several big figures in the Peak Fortress and Lost City are keeping an eye on it, otherwise, Xiao, how can the young Viscount safely auction this item? Sheep stood there with a touching smile on his lips, then, Lord Neisel, we might as well go together. I also want to see the Dragon Heart contract. After saying that, she quietly logged off. There were still 6 hours before the auction time. She took a shower and went to a secret room in the underground space. Brother Hummer, you are here too. Yes, the man exercised, revealing his perfect bronze skin comparable to that of an athlete, and said smoothly, Sheep, why did you get involved with the Lord? Brother Hummer reminds you, this person's potential power is usually very high. Don't reveal your true nature. Be careful to trick him. Let's just say that this authority to publish and block tweets was originally intended for the latest tactical armor launched by Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. I would rather lose millions to the Lord. Do you want it? If there are any big moves, be sure to report them to the Supreme Council. This way, if something happens, it won't cause any serious problems. You know, the cumulative investment from all over the world exceeds 90 billion. If there is a change in the entire situation, This loss will be huge. That's big. Haha, don't worry, how could I do it so quickly? I'm just using him to help me complete a few things, no one will find out. At 5 p.m., big merchants from all over the surrounding areas and the lords heard about the auction and came to Dusk Village. In order to maintain safety, even Luna's 400-man knights were all transferred to the village for defense. Even Luna's father Calicos was alarmed and sent hundreds of people here after recording a call with the music crystal. The army stationed in Dusk Village has grown to 1,000, with an average level of 40. There are more than 2,000 troops within a 10-kilometer range, so some jumping clowns don't want to get into this muddy water. Shen Xian stood on the mage tower and looked down at his feet. The upgrade was carried out in an orderly manner. It's a village after all. It's ridiculous that a shabby place wants to compete with the Vank family for the market in the underground world, a discordant voice sounded. Be gentle, Brother Miller, don't you have the demeanor of a noble? It's just the right opportunity to understand the strength of the Lord. At least I think that for a Viscount who has risen for less than 3 years, this development is quite good. Nozzle scolded slightly. Behind him followed the lovely sheep. Layout, planning, everything is so perfect. The subtle connection between buildings is like the body of the vampires. This is a magical creation. Sheep was secretly shocked by the Lord's construction. It seemed ordinary, but it could reveal a kind of transcendence in the ordinary. After a while, many famous players and powerful NPCs came to Dusk Village. Some praised it, some depreciated it. They all came because of the Dragon Heart contract, because a legendary item is really very important. Look, there are many people coming. If only one party comes, they may rob and rob, but in such a chaotic situation, they will be restricted by others, Shen Xian said. His eyes suddenly fell on the screen presented by the crystal ball, muttering, he is here too. Who? Miss Xiao asked immediately. Miller, a person who may cause trouble. Haha, everything is hosted by me. They don't know me. Besides, you have done a lot, you can't let me do nothing and eat for free. Miss Xiao smiled and recommended herself. As the two of them stared at the village below, a huge figure emitting a strong aura slowly shrank and landed on the top of the mage tower, appearing in front of them. A demigod black dragon. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 173. Level 150, this is the highest level that can be achieved under normal circumstances, the peak after the third transformation, and the man in front of him who was transformed by the black dragon has such a level. However, he has no hostility, and his favorability is displayed as 85, which is a very high number. Neutral creatures are 50, and the underground camp is 55. Completing a series of tasks of the NPC can reach 70, and then there will be a long growth stage. Simply put, it is cultivation, but how can this black dragon named Adahur have a favorability of 85? Shen Xian became a little confused. The human form of the black dragon named Adahur is a handsome man with long pure black hair, but his eyes are golden, shining with the glory of divinity. He has not yet been deified, but he has already touched this world, which makes him look different and reveals a kind of supremacy and holiness. You are not afraid of my existence. Yes. Because you have no hostility towards me. Hearing Shen Xian's calm answer, the black dragon quickly opened his mouth and said, you know very well. You saved my brother Amontanus, and I have a deep impression of you. He paused for a while. My purpose of coming here is very simple, that is, I want to obtain the Dragon Heart contract. For the Obsidian Dragon City, a Dragon Heart contract is enough for us to control 3 small dragon tribes, which is very important. After speaking, he smiled disdainfully at the ground under his feet. Look, the gem dragon from the surface is here, let me say hello to him. His body suddenly dissipated in the air. At this level, he had a very deep understanding of space and time, so he appeared under his feet and stopped the gem dragon that had transformed into a human form. What should we do? It seems that there are quite a lot of people, and their levels are so high. Fortunately, no high-level materials are auctioned, otherwise people will be voyeuristic. That's right, but there is one thing I am sure of, that is, Adahar wants to buy this dragon heart contract with gold. Hey, doesn't it say that we have a very powerful thug? Miss Yao thought of this with a look of joy on her face. Originally there was Luna at level 100, and now there is Adahar at level 150, but, this will offend the surface dragons. There is no way, this kind of thing will happen sooner or later. Let's go down, the first day of the auction is about to begin. Legendary items such as the Dragon Heart contract must be auctioned last, only in this way can it attract big customers. Although there are no epic items, there are several materials for making epic items. These are provided by Frey, and there is a special purpose for auctioning them at this juncture. Shen Xian doesn't have to worry about the auction, because there is an auctioneer from Sotheby's in the Alliance, and being good at exploring the specialties of players in the real world is also what a leader needs to do. The first day was from 6 to 8 o'clock. During this period, there were many players. Thanks to the developed productivity, the average working time of employees around the world is only 6 hours, so there is plenty of time to invest in the virtual world. Several rare items were bought by Mr. Fang, who has a lot of money, from the trading platform. They are all items with special significance that are difficult to appear in batches. As the auction progressed, 5 rare items and 50 excellent items were auctioned on the first day. Logically, these NPCs and players from major forces would not be interested, but because of the value of the items, many were still auctioned off. At this time, Shen Xian and others led patrol teams to scout the village. The first day's auction was a trade volume of 180,000. By the end of the 3 days, the prosperity of the territory would reach a point that would not fall to the bottom in a short time. Although the Dusk village was calm on the surface, in fact, no one could remain calm in the face of legendary items. Several swordsmen walked into the center of the village under construction with the body of a dark elf. "What's going on?" Shen Xian asked. "A dark elf trying to sneak in," the cross swordsman reported. "Where did he appear?" "The underground maze." "Yes, Lord." The other party tried to break through the blockade of the underground maze, but was hit to death by a rolling stone. Shen Xian felt that if the Dark Elves were to take major action, they would definitely do it in the next few hours, and they would never do it openly and honestly, and would definitely bring their army to launch a sneak attack. Killing Chris is the third way to eliminate the hidden danger, but the probability is too small. How could the cunning Dark Elves come to the door? But this auction has increased the success rate of the third method by several times. The demigod Black Dragon Adahar will definitely help him because of his 85 favorability. When the enemy will appear is a question. Just as he was thinking about it, a sudden fight had already begun not far from the village. "Daisy, your idiotic behavior really makes me doubt whether your bloodline is pure." The Black Dragon Adahar insulted a graceful blue-haired beauty opposite by name. The real identity of this beauty is the human form transformed by the gem dragon. The dragons are proud. Facing such insults, Daisy certainly couldn't remain calm. But this was in Dusk Village. If there was a fierce battle of this level, at least half of the village would be destroyed. "Adahar, what do you want to do? Did I offend your dignity?" As an envoy sent by the surface dragons to purchase the Dragon Heart contract, Daisy didn't want to make a big deal. Besides, she was only level 120. Who knew that the Obsidian Dragon City would send such an envoy second only to the Obsidian Dragon King? Adahar smiled grimly. "No, it's just that I found out that you wanted to steal the Dragon Heart contract." "This is a false accusation." What evidence do you have? Daisy cried out with a trembling body. She did not do such a thing, but when the Obsidian Dragon King sent Ataher out, he wanted him to find as much trouble as possible. It was no wonder that Daisy was there. The surface dragons and the underground dragons were fighting endlessly, and this involved another piece of history. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 174. I have to say that it is inappropriate for Daisy, a gem dragon, to come underground like this, because dragons are not like humans, and everyone can see her surface identity. In such a competition for legendary items, everyone must be full of hostility towards her. Adhel has the power of a demigod, so his words represent the truth. No one dares to disobey him, they just stand aside and watch what happens. It seems that Lord Adahel is determined to win the Dragon Heart contract. No, this is terrible. No matter how much money we bring, we don't dare to compete with him. It was posted on the treasure hunt website but was eventually obtained by an NPC. It's really disappointing. There is no way. Who would have expected that a demigod black dragon would come out? Those epic level materials are not bad, so let's fight for them. Miller stood on the side and said, "Dear brother, what do you think? If the auction is messed up, then the Lord's power will definitely be hit. But do you think it's possible?" Neisel glanced at Miller helplessly. Adahel seems to be related to the Lord. I don't think it's easy to disrupt the situation. But the Dark Elves will come, won't they? Yes, such an opponent is not worth the Blood Clan's action, Neisel agreed. When the onlookers were talking, Daisy was so angry that she almost fainted. When the proud Dragon Clan was insulted like this, her face was very ugly. The dragon power on his body suddenly dispersed, and the surrounding units began to lose health at a rate of 10 lives/second. Is this how the surface dragons do things? Haha, what a savage female dragon. The jeers started again, and Daisy frowned and decided to ignore his voice, because obtaining the Dragon Heart contract was much more important than this. Shen Xian saw that Adahel did not really want to conflict with Daisy, but just wanted to make her angry. Because he had a good impression, he would not let the village be destroyed, so he would only use some more special methods. The reason is that one is the feud between the righteous Dragon Clan and the evil Dragon Clan, and the other is the financial gap between the two parties. The Gem Dragon is much richer than the Black Dragon. Therefore, if Obsidian Dragon City wants to obtain this thing, it must defeat Daisy. The reason why the Dragon Heart contract is valued by the Dragon Clan is because it can control the characteristics of the Dragon Clan. It does not receive much attention among other NPC forces, so the two major Dragon Clans have become strong competitors for this item. This is good news. The Dragon Clan is rich and will not be stingy about spending money on items that harm their dignity. In addition, the Dragon Clan on the surface consider themselves righteous and never do evil things. They will never destroy Dusk Village and take away the Dragon Heart contract. You can imagine that the final price will be ridiculously high. However, Adahel's attitude is a very key factor. Apart from him, he is not worried even about people like Neisel. He is the only one who cannot do it. This is a variable. The level 150 Black Dragon cannot simply rely on the army. Made up for. The only way to find out is from his mouth, Shen Xian thought to himself. The dispute between the two dragons eventually ended in separation, which greatly disappointed many NPCs who wanted to see the two dragons fighting with sinister intentions. Damn it, are these two dragons so afraid of death? Miller whispered angrily. From 8 to 10 p.m. is the auction on the second day. The items in this auction are better than those on the first day, which makes many disappointed players and NPCs extremely excited. However, more and more Dark Elves are discovered. Look. It seemed like they couldn't stand the loneliness and were about to take action. Shen Xian was very busy. At this time, he didn't even have time to meet with Mo Buddha and the others. He had to pay attention to the Dark Elves and contact the Black Dragon. This was something he had to do. "Lord, I want to talk to you about something." Adahel opened the door with one hand and broke into the center of the village. "I wonder what's going on with Mr. Adahel." "Gold, I need 2 million gold from you." Okay, Shen Xian agreed immediately, but he was unwilling in his heart. But in front of a level 150 boss, how could he refuse at level 57? His golden eyes suddenly flickered. "Then, I will tell you my purpose. That's because I don't bring as much gold as Daisy does, and the total is still short of several million. Originally, I could snatch this female dragon even if she got the Dragon Heart contract, but I heard that there are several level 120 the above Dragon Clan elders are rushing here, so I have to take pictures of it through legal means. So, how much gold does Mr. Adahel carry?" "Nearly 30 million," he answered without hesitation, and had no scruples about Shen Xian. "I know that your territory is in a delicate period, and holding an auction is a last resort. I can help you eliminate some enemies that are difficult for you to eliminate. Come in exchange for these 2 million gold as a reward." He didn't blush at all when he spoke, which showed that Black Dragon regarded this rogue behavior as normal. Shen Xian said to Fleur, "What do you think?" "I think it's okay." Fleur agreed. 2 million is half for each person. Deduct 90% from me. Your territory has not lost much. Assuming that the auction is for 30 million, you can earn 3 million. After deducting 1 million, you will still have 2 million. The two made a decision simply. Hesitation at this time would be bad. In reality, 2 million gold is almost equivalent to 1 million yuan, which is really difficult for ordinary players to choose. There are still more than 50 hours until the village center is upgraded, and Chrissy's Dark Elves finally start to take action. At 9:34, the small military camp in the underground maze was attacked suddenly. Although the news came, the troops in the camp were completely massacred. Miss Xiao led 1,000 troops to intercept and block 300 Dark Elves. The two sides fought fiercely. However, Chris did not appear in the fierce battle. Obviously, this clever and vicious woman abandoned these Dark Elves as bait in exchange for the opportunity to sneak in. At 10:05, after hundreds of casualties, 300 Dark Elves were annihilated in the maze. Chris lost her trace and was estimated to have ambushed somewhere near the village. The detection technique did not respond, the trap was not triggered, and the Dark Elves could appear in front of them at any time. At this time, the third day of the auction began. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 175. Black Market. With the cooperation of the Dark Elf slaves, several lords with huge sums of money were welcomed into the largest room. Although they were well aware of the ownership of the Dragon Heart contract, everyone was still interested in watching an interesting competition. At 10:10, the auction started. The first item was the Abyss Demon Skeleton. This was something that dark wizards dreamed of. It could increase the quantity and quality of the demons they summoned, and it had a surprising effect. What's going on? I remember that this item is not on the auction list. Several players thought to themselves with their hearts beating wildly, but they didn't know that Shen Xian came to a conclusion after counting the auction results of the previous 2 days. If this makes the auction when it ends, more than 100 million gold will be lost in vain. So after plotting with Miss Xiao for a while, a new plan to win over gold came out. If you want so many NPCs and players to willingly keep the gold here, you definitely can't use forceful buying and selling methods, so you spent nearly 100,000 contribution points to temporarily borrow a large amount of goods from Fleur and prepare for a big fight. Due to limited strength, circulating such a large amount of high-grade materials at one time will definitely make people suspicious, and the quantity can only be limited. Even so, these auctions are still enough to squeeze people dry and add millions to the territory's income. Besides, it is impossible to accept all the 100 million gold, because a large part of the people who come to Dusk Village are entrusted to come for the Dragon Heart contract. Several million gold accounts for most of the territory's liquidity. If it is spent like this, what will happen? Without returns, the territory's operations will surely stagnate and regress, eventually leading to its own consequences. No one realized the meaning of these high-end materials that suddenly appeared, and they all exclaimed for the auction, "It's actually the skeleton of an abyssal demon, and he produced everything with an explosion rate of less than 1%. How come the Lord's character is so good?" Others solemnly ordered their subordinates, "We must obtain the advanced material of the abyss demon bones later. This is an opportunity that cannot be missed. Don't let others take the lead. Be one step ahead and be one step ahead. We, the Furong Guild, are determined to win the abyss demon bones." You can imagine how fierce the competition is. From 50,000 to 380,000, this piece of material alone makes Dusk Village look like a town, and it is only found in large towns with a population of more than 10,000. This has made many businessmen have a strong interest in cooperating with Dusk Village. However, the next few items moved these NPCs and players even more. The Flower of Death and the three-headed Hell Dog Fur, these two items are also extremely rare items. Many players even complained that they did not bring enough gold, and contacted people they knew to prepare for cooperation in bidding. After all, only a few people competed for the Dragon Heart contract, and the majority of people were interested in the remaining items. So before the auction ended, the territory's funds suddenly increased by more than 5 million. After deducting the share of the small lords in the fief, Fleur's expenses alone amounted to 700,000. At this time, it was getting closer and closer to the debut of Dragon Heart contract, and the players and NPCs on the field became a little impatient. Dark place. A dark elf hiding deep in the shadow suddenly drew his sword, and flicked towards a Frost Whisperer Ranger on the opposite side like lightning. The Frost Whisperer Ranger was Ant Bing. She shot a cross arrow with ice coldness on her face and retreated to after the stone pillar. The dark elf sneered, "Give you death." The body disappeared, and he seemed to have crossed the void and appeared directly behind the stone pillar. One of the two scimitars slashed towards the neck, and the other stabbed into the chest, bursting out with powerful force. The cold and humid air around him quickly heated up and boiled. With two sneers, the fighting spirit passed through the stone pillar, leaving behind 2 damage of 400 and 500. Even a building with a defense of 300 like the stone pillar suffered a high amount of damage. You can imagine what it would be like to hit the body. But Ant Bing did not panic. Her heartbeat was even much slower than usual. She stared and took down the second prepared crossbow with one hand. The solace of the dark elves on one side felt a bone-chilling chill. Freezing trap. Causes an immobilization state to units within a range of 3 meters, lasting 3 seconds, and causing a slowdown of 60%, lasting 12 seconds. The dark elf's body felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He quickly took out the thawing potion, but unfortunately Ant Bing's second cross arrow struck. Demonic poison arrows. Terrifying arrows coated with demon blood can instantly cause 180% physical damage and cause a poisoning state that lasts for 30 minutes. But that's okay, because the Dark Elves with 30,000 lives are not afraid of this kind of damage at all. However, 2 cross swordsmen rushed out from both sides and restrained the Dark Elves' movements with severing blows 6 seconds apart. Only then did he show a look of fear. Ant Bing never gives people a chance, otherwise this famous king of the killer world would not be alive today. Of course she is versatile. As long as she can kill the target, what does it matter if she brings a group of people with her? In just 10 seconds, the Dark Elf suffered more than 10,000 injuries. With red blood, he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. The last blow was taken by Ant Bing, who opened his neck with a dagger. Golden light flashed and he reached level 66. Number 31, I think all the crises planted in the territory have been eliminated, she said calmly. Everyone, after experiencing the madness of the flower of death and the fur of the three-headed dog from hell, we will now face the most memorable moment of this auction event, the auction of the Dragon Heart contract. The player hosting the auction shouted loudly, inspiring the atmosphere in the venue. In the eyes of everyone looking forward to it, the Dragon Heart contract was delivered, escorted by Miss Aaron and Fleur in person. The Dragon Heart contract looks like a drop-shaped red crystal, but unlike a gem, it has surging power inside. Touching its surface will flash the divine inscriptions written by the ancient dragon god. Seeing this lost piece as a long-lasting legendary item, there was contempt in the eyes of Adahel and Daisy. Stupid mortals actually want to control the Dragon Clan. Don't they know that weak people cannot be recognized by the Dragon Clan? However, there was another place in the field. A jealous gaze was also fixed on the Dragon Heart contract. His tongue gently poked out and licked the excited dry lips, and said secretly, "Is this the Dragon Heart contract? This is something that can drive women crazy, the beautiful treasures, the catastrophe, and the doomsday catastrophe. As long as we get these two legendary items, the rise of the seventh family is just around the corner." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 176. The mysterious woman scanned the few higher-level players in the field with a vigilant look. In her eyes, the Black Dragon and the Gem Dragon were both very difficult to deal with. The dragon race's natural resistance made them difficult to control. As long as they were stopped, it would be as easy as taking things out of a bag to get these two legendary items. The player on the stage shouted, "This is the Dragon Heart contract." The 5 supreme holy objects symbolizing the friendship of the dragon race left by the great dragon god Hagem. I won't say much about the properties. I believe everyone knows it very well. The reserve price for the auction is 5 million gold. Those who have dreamed of dragons since childhood might as well take action. These words are indeed attractive to players. The trend of dragon knights has been popular for nearly 100 years and has lasted for a long time. The problem is that there are still 2 terrifying dragons sitting here. Who dares to challenge the dragons? According to historical records, the Dragon Heart contract is in the Dragon Clan treasury most of the time. Except for a few that are scattered outside, only NPCs above level 100 can own it. From this paragraph, it can be seen that the Dragon Heart contract is not as easy to use as written. 5 million. 6 million. 7 million. The players bid sparsely, and they all looked forward to Adahir and Daisy because they knew that the Dragon Heart contract would eventually fall into the hands of the dragon. Daisy looked around the audience and felt that there was no need to delay. She raised her head and wanted to bid, but Adahir snorted and shouted, 30 million. The whole audience was shocked. The players knew that the dragon was rich, but they didn't expect the dragon to be so rich. They would probably consider whether to slay the dragon after returning. Who can resist the temptation of money? Those players who brought 10 million and thought they could get it safely made a mistake, because they could not detect the power of the NPC and could not formulate targeted measures. Legendary items had been auctioned at high prices before, but the Dragon Heart contract was different. This was an item of great strategic significance. A level 60 character could get a dragon equivalent to 1,000 troops, which was more practical than a sword or a suit of armor. Damn, this is too rich. Aren't dragons very stingy? How can they spend money like water? Several players sighed with their mouths wide open. You don't know, the dragons are also very face conscious. How can you get the Dragon Heart contract without spending money in this situation? If it is auctioned for 1 million, doesn't it mean that the dragon is cheap? The dragons will not allow such a thing to happen. A player explained patiently. This effect is exactly what Adahar wanted. The whole audience was really silent, stunned by his wealth. The only one who was unhappy was the gem dragon Daisy, who stared at him palely and asked, "You knew how much gold I brought a long time ago, right? How could it be?" "Mother Dragon, you are too suspicious," Adahar sneered, spread his hands, and looked like he didn't care about it, which made Daisy very angry. "Unfortunately, I heard that it will take half a day for the Dragon Elder to arrive." "What a pity. There are still a lot of players and ordinary NPCs who don't know the truth." Because of their good impression of Adahar, the reply in their level query is a skeleton, indicating that the level is over level 10, so no one knows that he is a demigod. On the other hand, they wonder why Daisy hasn't bid yet, but they don't know that the gem dragon has been eaten by Adahar and has no power to fight back. In addition, Daisy didn't learn the great quality of Adahar to borrow money. If she borrowed a few 100,000 from the players, she could change the situation. The whole venue was silent for 30 seconds, and the host player was surprised and thought to himself, 30 million just got it? Why didn't the Lord have any expression? This is 30 million, not 300,000 or 3 million, a full 8 digits. There are definitely only a handful of people in the world who have such a sum of money, but they don't know that Shen Xian has known it for a long time. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "That beautiful lady of the Dragon Clan, are you really not interested in the Dragon Heart contract? 30 million once, 30 million twice, 30 million 3 times. Lord Adahar, the Dragon Heart contract is yours." The whole audience cheered. "It's time," the Dark Elf murmured, and her thoughts were quickly transmitted to every corner. The Dark Elves ambushed in the shadows flashed into the room. "Take away the Dragon Heart contract," the sharp voice shouted again, and several Dark Elf slaves in cold and revealing clothes snatched the weapons from the players' waists and turned back to attack. With this voice, chaos began. "What's going on? Why are there Dark Elves?" the uninformed players asked the people around them one after another, and Miller, who knew the truth, cursed secretly, wishing that these Dark Elves would kill, burn, and rob everything of the Lord. "Hide behind," Neizer said to Sheep, summoning a blood-red protective barrier to retreat. Dozens of second-level elites transferred from the desolate city rushed into the room. The two sides began to stalemate. The players then discovered that the Dark Elves entered the room disguised as slaves providing special services in the black market and did not suffer any harm. In the fantasy world, there is such a saying that it is generally difficult to distinguish the difference between races, just like elves think that dwarves look the same as tree stumps. In the minds of dwarves, elves are all women, so when the Dark Elf slaves were replaced, no one noticed it at all. Is this really the case? Chris chanted a spell, and a blood-red light shot up from the floor of the room. The ground collapsed, and several spiders several meters tall with metal-like bones rushed out. Not only that, these spiders quickly spit out green sticky spider silk, and those with lower levels were immediately immobilized, while the Dark Elves were not affected. The Dark Elves who sneaked in were all elite among the elite, with levels above 70, and their equipment was also excellent level suits. Even the killing sacrifice with a thinner blood bar had 75,000 lives. You can imagine how difficult this group of people is to deal with. Chris quietly stepped into the shadows. When she reappeared, she was already at the front of the room. A dark flame condensed in her hand and sent it to Mistrelan, but when the magic flame approached, Mistrelan disappeared. Mirror image. Chris was furious. She never thought that the Lord would not only tease herself but also tease others. He let a mirror image come here. Did he want to make the lords of all places angry for their disrespect? There was no time to care about so much. She cursed, and her body disappeared again and came to the Dragon Heart contract. She was only one step away from getting this treasure that enslaved the Dragon Clan. She smiled triumphantly. Her fingers greedily touched the Dragon Heart contract, as if everything was in her hands, but a ball of golden flames burned from her hands, and she immediately groaned in pain. Her life of 260,000 dropped at a terrifying speed, 2,000 points per second, for 45 seconds. She was frightened and scared like a beast, but she didn't understand why her hands, which had been protected by divine magic and were not even vulnerable to poison and acid, and were not afraid of rocks and flames, would fall into a magic trap under such circumstances. She was not a magic apprentice. How could those humble, ignorant, and insignificant apprentices be compared with her? She cursed secretly and stomped her feet in anger, and strange forces like shock waves formed by shadows shot out from her body. The room with only 4,000 lives collapsed, and some players were busy trying to escape. Players above level 50 were thinking about how to encircle and suppress the Dark Elves. For them, assisting the honest and trustworthy lords was more meaningful than the Dark Elves. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 177. More than 10 desecration knights raised their shields to form a defense line. The poisonous fog spread by those perverted spiders has the characteristic that it cannot be removed except by antidote. For example, the general quick-acting poison lasts for 1 minute, and the chronic poison lasts for 6 hours, but the poisonous fog of these spiders can last for hundreds or even thousands of hours. Either die or choose to use the detoxification technique. The only way to resist is the shield technique, but this is not a long-term solution. If these abyss spiders summoned from the most corrupted places are not eliminated, the territory will always be shrouded in the shadow of death. The diffused poisonous fog caused many residents to die, and the satisfaction of the territory continued to decline. The damage of the poisonous fog was 5 points/second, which was a disaster for residents with a life of no more than 1,000. The desecration knight was better. After raising the shield, he barely held the lance and stabbed at these spiders that were like wearing armor. One by one, 1,300 and 1,800 numbers jumped out, and the occasional desecration attack would jump out 3,400 numbers. The remaining troops in the territory surrounded several dark elves, but these second-level double-blade rangers and killing priests were too flexible, so they could only be restrained by elites. Finally, there was no shortage of people in the alliance. Facing the thunderstorm-like attack of the double-blade ranger, all the melee professions with 10,000 HP surrounded them tightly. The double-blade ranger's void walking could not ignore obstacles. When he was surrounded, it was the day of his death. However, the level gap could not be made up, and even the most outstanding generals could not avoid losses. In 2 minutes, dozens of buildings turned into ruins, and the center of the Black City seemed to have experienced a catastrophe. Angry Chris shouted, "Give them doomsday!" As soon as the voice fell, several abyss spiders left the battlefield and sneaked towards Dusk Village. She wanted to teach the Lord a lesson that she would never forget: let all the residents of Dusk Village become food for the abyss spiders. Turning back to the room, she thought of a way and shouted, "Take it, let a lowly male ranger take the Dragon Heart contract." "Mother," the man said in a trembling voice. He knew that if he did so, he would definitely be counterattacked. Even though he didn't know which great wizard left it, he knew that he would definitely not survive. Hesitantly, Chris impatiently drew out the blade and held it against his back to threaten, "Don't forget the seventh family's upbringing." The man finally slowly reached out and picked up the treasure. Ah screamed, a golden flame that was more magnificent than before spread all over the earth. The dark elf struggled and howled in the flames and slowly died. Chris snorted coldly and picked up the Dragon Heart contract that fell on the ground. At this time, the power of the magic trap was something she could bear. Thinking that this rare treasure finally fell into her hands, her dissatisfaction eased. Prepared to retreat, Chris was not blinded by victory. Even though she knew that there was another doomsday catastrophe in the territory, she still knew that these troops alone were not enough to get it. When she retreated to the cave dug by the abyss spider in the center of the room, at her, who had been waiting for a long time, took action. The humanoid black dragon moved quickly. He took a step in front of Chris, and Chris immediately noticed an irresistible figure. She didn't know why there was an unknown person here, and the blade she held reflexively stabbed the other party. Adahar raised his hand to block, and a number of 300 burst slightly on his chest, laughing wildly. If the mother of the Blood Moon City, Syrax, came, it might be more interesting, but you can only be an ant I stepped on. He raised his hand and punched, without any skills. The Dragon Clan never practiced martial arts. This extremely ordinary attack exploded 48,000 damage in Chris's chest. Chris, holding the Dragon Heart contract, rushed out quickly, destroying 4 or 5 buildings in a row before stopping and being buried under the ruins. My black market, Shen Xian's heart was bleeding when he saw Adahar's flamboyant fighting style. Fulay smiled and said, "It's good to demolish these buildings. With so much open space, we can build more advanced buildings." After thinking about it, he felt that it was true. The territory's liquidity suddenly became 5 million. Of course, it couldn't be the same as before. He needed more underground space. Now, wasn't Adahar doing this hard labor for free? What an honor it was for a demigod to be a hard laborer. At this time, Adahar turned his head and said to Daisy, "Will the self-proclaimed righteous gem dragon succumb to the evil in front of him?" Daisy bit her lip. It was another naked insult. If she wanted to punish, she would punish the shameless black dragon in front of her. But now was not the time to turn against him. The justice of the gem dragon made her succumb to the situation. She didn't know what she said, and finally she also took action. Rainbow Halo. Daisy slowly released her combat skills, which could increase the magic attribute of units within 2 kilometers by 10%. She was a mage in human form, and she casually fired nearly 100 energy bombs in all directions. The level 10 energy bombs ranged from the primary blue to the current 7 colors, and the damage reached a terrifying level. A single shot caused 17,000 damage, and a total of more than 2 million damage output. The Dark Elves immediately experienced a nightmare baptism. It is better to provoke warriors than mages. This is what the hardcore players in their 50s and 60s taught their descendants. Since their generation, mages have been positioned as a damage output unit with a crazy offensiveness. These Dark Elves were unlucky and encountered the Gem Dragon, which was proficient in magic to the pinnacle. If they were scholars, except Miss Xiao, and alchemists, it would be fine. After all, they were not very proficient in combat under the name of wizards, but the Gem Dragon was different. The overwhelming instant and silent magic could flatten a fortress with copper walls and iron walls in a short time. These Dark Elves, no matter how elite they were, could not escape. Because of the support of the Dark Elves that emerged from the ground, the number of gatherings quickly increased to 500, but because of Daisy's joining, their number continued to decrease. In this battle, the weak primary professions were just like cannon fodder. Shen Xian never thought of letting them attack. The task of encircling and suppressing Dark Elves has begun. Eliminating one Dark Elf can gain 8,000 experience points, and killing Chris can gain 600,000 experience points. The task lasts for 60 minutes. Please complete it as soon as possible. The players in the territory received such a temporary task arranged by the system. The black market has become more chaotic. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 178. In the darkness, dust and sand were flying. Near the ruins of the black market, Adahel took another step and moved to the place where Chris disappeared. He clenched his fist and smashed it into the soil. A damage figure of 14,000 floated out from the depths of the ruins. There was a dull groan. Chrissy is not dead and is still suffering damage. Unfortunately, the Dragon Heart contract has no effect on Adahel. A big restriction of this treasure is that it cannot control a dragon that exceeds its own level, so trying to control the entire tribe by sneaking into Dragon City is not feasible. Knowing that Adele was something she couldn't compete with, Chris wanted to escape. From the beginning, she never guessed that the Lord would have such help, which led to mistakes. Without this giant dragon, the Lord would have been there at this time. Her army struggled in agony. Damn it, why is there this giant dragon? It is the most powerful among the dragons. Now Chris groaned with resentment. She slowly got up, but Adahel did not give her a chance, even not bothering to snatch the dragon heart contract from her. The third attack struck. This time, Chris activated the universal divine spell of shield to barely resist, and started with level 8 blood sacrifice, sacrificing 20% of her current life in exchange for a 30% increase in movement speed and reaction speed. If she wants to escape, as long as she leaves this terrifying place, no matter what, if her army is completely annihilated, she can form a knighthood composed of dragons and dragons within a few days. By then, the seventh family will who can take away the seat of clan mother? She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and her black body showed beautiful textures blessed by divine power under the bath of blood. In the darkness, her soul-stirring body was enchanting and hot. Even in this situation, she was a stunning beauty. Suddenly, a power that could resist the power of the dragon shot out from her eyes, and her body gradually became void. Adhel said coldly, "Blood sacrifice. Reduce attributes by 50% for 30 days. The dragon heart contract is really worth it. You pay." After that, he attacked again, and being familiar with the operation of divine power, he punched her in the face. 39,000. Chrissy's body swayed, but she was not slowed by the attack. On the contrary, her perception reached an unprecedented level at this time, as if the whole world was under her control, and her figure disappeared from sight in a flash. Adahel did not find her immediately, but instead growled lowly, unaware of her presence. Shen Xian and Fleur observed quietly, their expression serious, and he did not officially take action until Chrissy's health dropped below 20%. The black dragon suddenly raised his eyebrows, and a wave-like figure appeared dozens of meters away. Fleur's detection technique quickly took action and locked onto her figure. Shen Xian was approaching, but Chrissy didn't know it yet. Since the passage she came from was blocked, she waited for the opportunity under the cover of shadow. The evil aura dispersed, a dark golden shield blocked his chest, and Shen Xian stabbed out with a sword, causing 800 damage. When she saw him, Chrissy's face began to twist, and she stabbed his chest with the blade without thinking. Shen Xian moved slightly to avoid the fatal blow, and a small blood flower burst out and jumped out of 2,700. Chrissy has to pay the price for her love war. 2 seconds later, Fleur's flaming arrow hit, causing 3,200 damage. After 1 second, Adahel slapped her, causing 9,000 damage. Chrissy's health instantly dropped below 5%, and now she was doomed. Adahel intentionally gave up his last experience to Shen Xian. For him at level 150, hundreds of thousands of experience were nothing. With the sound of "ah," Chris let out a high decibel scream. A bloody hole was pierced in the chest and back, and a big 1,100 appeared. Her whole body slowly collapsed. Tip: the player lord gains 74,000 experience points. Adhel picked up the dragon heart contract from Chris and said, "Lord, the agreement is over. I will leave the gold on the flying dragon. You can get it yourself." Shen Xian didn't pay attention to Adahel's departure without saying goodbye. For demigods, they had too many things to do, and they wouldn't carry gold with them. 30 million is not 30,000, so it was like a small mountain when piled together. Daisy also left without saying goodbye. She hated Adahel deeply but could not implicate Shen Xian. This was the justice of the Surface Dragon clan. The abyss demon spider sent by Chris to reduce the satisfaction of the village ran rampant in Dusk Village, and Ant Bing led an army to encircle and suppress it. The AI of the demon spider that has lost its command is pitifully low, and can be easily eliminated with a little strategy. There were hundreds of dark elves, most of whom escaped, and the rest were divided up among the players participating in the auction. The casualties were evenly divided among so many forces, and were almost negligible. Apart from some building damage, Dusk Village was not seriously affected. Seeing the satisfactory data of 61, Shen Xian breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, it doesn't matter even if it drops below 60, because he has the Big Lord's certificate. He only needs to remove the Big Lord's certificate, and the satisfaction will drop to 50. However, at this time, the satisfaction will slow down because the actual situation of the territory is not that bad. If it rebounds, even if it is stable above 50, then wearing it when the village center upgrade progress is 100% will still meet the conditions to complete the upgrade. Prosperity rose to 22. Due to the appearance of Adhel, the original plan went awry. According to the previous plan, even if the territory suffered a catastrophe, the upgrade would not fail. All situations were under control, unless something happened. An enemy like Adahel is needed, otherwise the final result will not be changed. At 11 p.m., the upgrade progress was 10%, and the black market destroyed by the Dark Elves was rebuilt. With the support of more than 35 million gold, money is omnipotent. Of the more than 35 million gold, Frey took away 30 million. She will disappear for a while and use the gold to purchase precious items. In fact, the remaining liquidity is about 4 million. After deducting the repair and reconstruction costs, there are still 3.9 million left. However, the spoils left by the Dark Elves must be added. These Dark Elves are all elites in the family and use excellent suits, so about 700,000 harvests must be added, totaling 4.6 million. After the Dark Elves completely disappeared in Dusk Village, most players and NPCs received the task rewards and left. The remaining 3,000 troops guarded day and night, and no accidents could happen at this critical moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 179. Tavern in the Hills and Remote Villages at Dusk. Dear brother, are you going to let the Lord go like this? What else can we do? Neisel said speechlessly to his brother, who likes to be a philanderer but has mediocre strength. Now we are powerless to stop it, and it is impossible to stop it. The Dark Elves have retreated, and all large-scale attacks, any act of war is considered disrespectful to the fallen temple. Don't you fear those three great beings? No, no, I said. Of course. Miller shook his head repeatedly, but I am really unwilling to let the Lord go like this. Brother, can't you think of some other ways? Neisel's face darkened. Not yet. The ignorant Dark Elves did not choose all the lords to attack when they arrived in Dusk Hills. This allowed him to suffer little loss in the Dark Elves' plundering moon. Instead, he became famous through the auction. We may have to fight a trade war with him. This is our strength, isn't it? Miller's heart moved and he sighed. It just takes some time. The 60 hours passed minute by minute, which was a whole month for these guarding troops. Watching the extremely simple village center change in elevation, and the three-story houses were transformed into several magnificent buildings, even if they were physically and mentally exhausted, they would be exhausted without a trace. Shen Xian stood on the magic tower, which is the highest point of Dusk Village. From here, he can clearly overlook every corner of the village and have a panoramic view of everything. This is a long time, 2 days and 2 nights in the real world, and you need to wait patiently. With the care of his close neighbors within the alliance, he doesn't need to worry too much. Opening forums and databases is a normal way for every player to pass the time. There has long been a list of buildings in the town center on the internet. They were dug out from NPC towns and did not really rely on players' solo exploration. Compared with the hereditary Viscount who was ranked first in the world, this time the upgrade of the town center will be ranked after ranking 78th in the world. After all, the conditions for upgrade are not so harsh. Not everyone will be as unlucky as him to be harassed by NPCs every day. They say Mushiu is bound to be destroyed by Lin Feng. He is now the best among countless lords. He cannot stay away and can only face it bravely. In the country, the concept of town is usually used to describe a territory with a population of more than 2,000 to 10,000. In a town, all the buildings that a city should have are available. Maybe it cannot provide the most complete services, but it has everything in a city. In the fourth stage, the types of buildings in the territory begin to multiply. There are about 200 types of buildings, which is a great test for the player's patience. Let's talk about resource production first. From now on, we can build large-scale production facilities. The output of small-sized ones is 100 units/day, the medium-sized ones are 500 units/day, and the large-sized ones are 1,500 units/day. They are not restricted by geography and can be produced in several locations. 10 kilometers away. In terms of cost, it is about 1:4:9, which is a significant improvement. At the same time, the health value is 1:5:15, which is difficult to destroy. Almost all types of mines, farmlands, logging sites, and quarries can be created. Except for some resources with harsh collection conditions, such as ores associated with lava and plants that cohabitate with dragons, the rest can be obtained. For example, fishing grounds have never existed before. As long as there are underground lakes and rivers, you can obtain food such as fish and meat. Thanks to the exponential increase in production efficiency, a locust tactic was derived from this stage. For a territory with no outstanding characteristics in all aspects, it only takes a short time to control the total number of units here, which may be 1 million units. The resources are cleared. Then there are the basic buildings, such as roads, residential buildings, and warehouses. The attributes of these buildings have been increased by 50%. Their appearance and defense are quite good. They are still fragile in front of units above level 70, but they are strong against units around level 30. The basic building types have not changed much and remain at around 11 types. In terms of manufacturing, there are many more industry classifications, such as leatherworking, tailoring, and forging, which doubles the number to 78 types. New buildings such as gem processing and machinery factories have been added. There are roughly 35 types of commercial buildings, and one type of industry often corresponds to one type of shop. Although there are many cross-operated shops, this is also the characteristic of kingdom, freedom. Most of the service buildings are temples, which are important buildings. For the underground world, the establishment of temples is an expression of respect for the devil. Temples can improve satisfaction, civilization, and many other attributes. The largest temple in the Pharaoh Empire, the Myrindal Supreme Sanctuary, can even be improved by more than 10 points at a time, and this is when prosperity and civilization reach more than 60, but for this kind of miracle building, tens of millions of resources, hundreds of thousands of laborers and hundreds of hours of time are required. The military city wall is the focus. Many tactics will occur around the city wall and the derived gates and towers. As the upgrade progress continues, the stone is also transported to the previously designated location so that construction can begin as soon as possible. In addition, the town center has the right to build a small fortress. A small fortress is not a building like a bunker, but has a similar meaning to a fortress territory. Building a small fortress can accommodate no more than 1,000 troops to protect the security of the territory. Previously, Names such as military camps and black markets were names of functional areas. They did not clearly refer to one type of building, but were usually composed of several different buildings. Dusk Hills is a vast area, and it cannot just build a maze like other areas. The security of Twilight Town can be completely guaranteed by combining the fortress with the city wall. Relying on the terrain simulator, it is easy to plan the reasonable layout of the city wall. As the capital, Dusk Village needs to reach a 3-layer thickness of 30,000 life, so that it can achieve a more significant protective effect when fighting against siege machinery. There are still 32 hours before the upgrade is completed. Shen Xian, who has made plans early, summoned the players in the territory to arrange the next stage of tasks. If these are done before the town center upgrade is completed, they can be executed immediately after completion, and there will be no delay in the development of the territory. Moreover, after the upgrade, there will be many players preparing to be promoted to Baron and upgrade the town center. It is not necessary for him to delay the players in the alliance and dampen their enthusiasm. Let me explain the recent goals first. Chen Xian spoke very methodically. The first is to build a small fortress and city wall in the west. There is no person in charge yet. The scale of the fortress is the organization of 5 battalions. The main purpose is to resist the invasion from the west. As you know, there is Taranj in the south, and the terrain in the northeast is compact and the passage is narrow, so only the west needs to build a fortress. Building a fortress can save a lot of troops, because as long as the fortress is not lost, the fiefdom will not be invaded. There is a need to build a fortress in other places. In terms of urgency, the west is the most important. This is a good opportunity for players who are ruled in the second stage of the assembly center. Immediately, several players volunteered. The fortress belongs to Dusk Town and will not be troubled by the Great Lord. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Buletin Lao Buletin Si Buletin Me. Chapter 180. But this is an important responsibility. Shen Xian checked the development and combat levels of these players. Guarding the fortress must have this ability. Now he is not alone. He needs to be responsible for the entire fief. At the same time, reliability is also an aspect worthy of attention. Only players who are usually good people and get along well with the surrounding lords are eligible for this position. After many selections, only a handful of remaining players were selected, and the best were selected, and a player named Chunman Tennessee was finally selected as the player. Chunman Tennessee is a black American. In the past few weeks, he has been a large lord with 4 territories. However, due to the plunder of the Dark Elves, his territories suffered heavy losses. The gathering centers of 2 territories were completely destroyed. Therefore, he was almost reduced to the rank of petty lord. In terms of strength and character, this player is undisputed, so he won this position without any objection. So, Tennessee, are you free in the next 3 days? We need to build a small fortress as quickly as possible. A small fortress like this for protection is of great strategic significance. If it is not completed quickly, it will be easily destroyed by others. Before the fortress reaches a certain scale, it is very fragile. Chunman Tennessee obviously understands this truth. I am from Ned. A 3rd-level member's duty is to protect the safety of farming players, so he usually has no job and relies on part-time work to make a living. After hearing this, Shen Xian knew that a loose player organization like Ned supported a large number of loner players. These lonely players may not have a strong sense of cooperation, but their personal qualities are definitely good, so he said, "Okay, let's take a look first. Look at the map." Pointing to the entire western part of Dusk Hills, the budget of the small fortress is 100,000 gold, and the basic resources are 150,000 each. Our goal is to increase the size of the army to 500 within 3 days, and we need to conduct on-site surveys to determine the location. Everyone immediately calculated the rationality of the budget. it required 100 houses to accommodate a population of 500, 150 warehouses to obtain 150,000 units of inventory, a 3-story city wall of 800 UN, and roads of 1000 UN. These calculations are quite complicated, but most of them players still calculate, because the cost is their budget, and they have the right not to let this budget be disposed of arbitrarily. Judging from the amount and time, there was no problem. After a few minutes, more than half of the players were no longer skeptical. However, several players noticed a problem and asked, "These budget construction-related facilities are enough, what should we do? How to solve the follow-up supply problem of the fortress?" The fortress has no production capacity and no NPCs to provide resources. To maintain the operation of a small fortress with 1,000 troops, it requires at least 10 territories. So how should the contributions of the lords of these territories be handled? Shen Xian said, "I have already thought about the solution to this. I will first announce the 9 villages that provide resources for the small fortress." A series of lists were read out. These villages transport 10% of the territory's resource production directly to the small fortress, and the tax that originally needs to be provided to Dusk Village is exempted, Shen Xian announced. After hearing this promise, these players who felt unbalanced were relieved. Through this change, their burden was reduced. They originally needed to send a transport team to transport resources to Dusk Village. Now they only need to walk a few steps, saving a lot of labor force. For Shen Xian, he also did not suffer much loss. There were originally more than 100 territories that provided resources, but now they have been reduced by 10%. However, you must know that more than 50% of the resource supply in Dusk Village actually comes from the Viscount's fiefdom. The real loss, less than 5%, can be ignored. The remaining trivial matters of the small fortress were left to Chunman Tennessee. Believing that he could handle it with his ability, Shen Xian then set about solving the second matter. The second thing is to increase the population. As we all know, the current population of Dusk Village has just reached the town level, and is still far away from the number of 10,000. The population of the main territory is related to dozens of attributes of the fiefdom. For manufacturing, commerce, military, and technology all have a promoting effect, so the second thing is to increase the population of Dusk Village to 8,000 in a short period of time. 8,000 is a saturated number. The growth from 2,000 to 8,000 is very fast, and the growth from 8,000 to 10,000 will gradually slow down, so we chose such a critical number. Everyone has read the article Population, Territory, and Territory written by Never, right? The player nodded. Never only publishes a few articles a year, and his articles are not a big deal. They are as rare as big-name concerts held throughout the year. How many people on Earth will not read them? Major forums even offer millions of dollars in royalties to get Never published on their websites. There is no doubt that Never's technical articles are valuable. At this time, the introduction of a great person's words actually achieved great results. After listening to his words, everyone remembered this article, recognized his statement, and felt that the rapid growth of the population of Dusk Village was of great significance to them. Never has conducted more than 30 experiments in the development simulator. There is a big gap between the population of 4,000 and the population of 8,000. Take technology as an example. The technology research and development speed of a population of 4,000 is 100%, so the technology research and development speed of a population of 8,000 is at least 100%. 130%, the gap is not only here, but also in cost. The cost of a population of 4,000 is 100%, so the cost of a population of 8,000 is at most 90%. This is a kind of aggregation effect. The losses caused by the population explosion in a short period of time will be quickly made up for later. It can be said that there is no harm except the increased burden on the entire fiefdom and the chaos of public security. In addition, there are also benefits in business and military. Never did not give a final opinion, but players can see what he wants to express through test data. Expand the population as much as possible when resources allow, and there are many benefits. Therefore, when Shen Xian used never as a shield, players considered how to increase the population instead of why to increase the population. The public security problems caused by the rapid population growth will be alleviated because of the proof of the Great Lord. The current satisfaction has returned to 67, so there is no need to worry about this problem. As for resource supply, the grain output of the fiefdom is enough to provide more than 12,000 people, so there is no need to worry. But how to increase the population? What is the fastest and most efficient way? The answer given by Shen Xian is to let the two types of territories recruit and immigrate at the same time. The wizard apprentices and civilians of the human race are the main components of the population. Completely one composition will lead to an imbalance in the main territory. However, under normal circumstances, the population growth of the territory comes from refugees from all over the world. These refugees are free and do not need to spend resources to recruit through the village center. But now that it is a population explosion, it is necessary to use the function of the first territory core building that the system only provides to players. First of all, we need to immigrate from several human territories in the surrounding areas. It is impossible to easily recruit 1,000 people, which will paralyze the villages of these players. 100 people is the upper limit for a village at a time. It takes 5 minutes to recruit a wizard apprentice and 3 minutes to recruit a civilian. The immigration of 100 people requires players to take about 8 hours to make up. 4 immigrations can be carried out in a day, with a total of 300 people. At the same time, supporting residential buildings are needed to keep up. Now there are about 1,000 vacant houses in Dusk Village. If the construction of residential buildings keeps up, the goal can be achieved in 2 days.